support letter presentation. My name is Megan Parsons and I'm a project planning and research officer for Jordan's Principal. This presentation is going to be all about the support letter, what it is, who can write one, what to include in your letter, and how to address substantive equality when you are requesting an item or a product that's above normative standard. Thanks to Jordan River Anderson, Jordan's Principal is a child first initiative. So that means that the application is all about the child and their specific needs. But every child is different. There's many things that impact a child's life and their day-to-day experiences. Things like education, the community they're living in, finances, language, family, and culture. And support letters allow you to paint a picture of the child and use all these different pieces to explain what the child's specific needs are in relation to their Jordan's Principal request. So Indigenous Services Canada workers are the ones who make decisions and approve applications. It's not our team, it is not the Cree Health Board, but Indigenous Services Canada. And these workers who make these decisions and process applications are based in Montreal. So it's very possible that they don't know the reality of the child, the environment that they're living in. So it's best to include as much information as you can on the background and the child's context. The support letter is a key piece to the application because it's the opportunity for you as a community worker or professional working with the child to explain why you are making a request, why you support the application, and essentially what is it for. So who can write a support letter? There's several people who can do this. It could be a health professional, a mental health counselor, social worker, community worker, case manager, etc. Now we're going to go through the different parts of the support letter and what you might want to include. So first, most importantly, who are you? You want to say who you are and how you know the child. For example, I'm a doctor in Mysticiny and I've been following the child over the past 5 years. Another example could be that I have been tutoring the child after school for the past 3 months. Again, you want to state who you are and what your role is in the child's life. So the support letter is your chance to explain the context of the child. Like I had said, you want to paint a picture of the child and their surroundings. And when you think about this context, you might ask yourself what information is important for Indigenous Services Canada to know so that they understand your client, the child, and understand the request that you're making. Third, you might want to include a diagnosis if this is applicable to your application. But remember that to apply to Jordan's Principal, you do not need to have a disability or a diagnosis. So this does not apply to all support letters. Number 4, you want to make sure that you have a written recommendation. So you need to write out what you're requesting and be specific about it. So for example, recommending tutoring is not very specific. What kind of tutoring are you recommending? Is it for a specific subject? Is it group, individual tutoring? Is it going to be online? And how often do you recommend it? So something more specific would be, I recommend one-on-one tutoring for English, reading and writing. Recommending that the child attend therapy is also not very specific because it could be any kind of therapy. Your support letter could say instead, I recommend art therapy for this child. Including the frequency or how often you recommend it is also even more specific. So next, you must link your recommendation to the specific needs of the child. These could be health-related, social, educational, or diagnostic. If we look back at our example of art therapy, you might link it to a diagnostic need by saying that the art therapy will help the child work through a recent diagnosis of anxiety You could also say that it might help the child work through big changes that are happening in the home, so working through those emotions. You could also say that it would help the child work on social skills and confidence, which would benefit them at school. So they're linking it to an educational need. Once you've linked it to the child's specific needs, you might explain other reasons why art therapy might be beneficial. One of them could be that it's perfect for the age of your client, right? Art therapy doesn't require a lot of speaking. It's very action based. Maybe the child has tried other forms of therapy before and it didn't really click with them. Maybe the child loves to draw, they love art. That could be another reason linking the recommendation to the child's needs. Next, you're going to want to discuss or bring up the evidence of gap in service. So remember, Jordan's principle exists to fill gaps in service. So you're going to want to mention this in your letter. And a gap in service could mean many things. So there's a gap in funding. So maybe there's no money to cover this product or service. There could be a gap in human resource, meaning there's no one to fill the position, or there's no service in your community. And lastly, time can be a gap. So if your child has been waiting on a wait list for any number of years, even months, and it's affecting their development, you can apply because it's a gap in time. Lastly, you want to include the date, signature, and contact information. To summarize what you want to include in your letter, first, the author, who is writing this letter and how do they know the child, context, what's going on in the child's life, diagnosis, if there's any, if that's applicable to your request, a written recommendation, then link that recommendation to a health, social, educational, or diagnostic need, explain the gap in service, and sign it and put the date on your support letter. There are two types of applications. The first are applications that are normative. So these are for services and products that are pretty standard. And standard means the basic level of care that is expected for all Canadian children. So things like public health care, medication, education, community services, and activities. The basic level of healthcare and services for children. And you can apply for these products and services when there's a gap. Again, a gap could be time, funding, or a human resource. The second type of application are those that are above normative standard, meaning that the request is more than standard and more than what's available to all children. In other words, Jordan's principle can provide services and products when they're not available to everybody else. So an example of this could be an iPad. Not everyone needs an iPad. We might all want an iPad, but not every child needs one. But some children need them to communicate. iPads are often recommended by speech language pathologists because they're in the child's best interests. It can be a form of communication. Some other examples of above normative services or products that have been requested through Jordan's principle are food allowance, basic necessities, land-based activities, specialized programs, summer camp, sensory tools, assistive technology, and much more. When a request is above the normative standard, more than the basic level of healthcare and services, it may be requested by demonstrating a little bit more information in your support letter. You can demonstrate how the request ensures substantive equality, which we will get into in a couple slides, how it ensures cultural safety, or you might explain how it's in the best interest of the child. So what is substantive equality? It's basically a legal principle, but beyond that, it refers to the achievement of true equality in outcomes. So true equality in outcomes recognizes that we don't all start off in the same position in life, and that these unequal opportunities sometimes make it more difficult for some to reach the same goals and outcomes as others. Jordan's principle exists because there are challenges to accessing resources. Sometimes they're not available, they're too far away, there's delays and other unique barriers that make it hard for children to access public services. So to summarize, substantive equality addresses the inequalities that stem from an individual's particular circumstances, so their context. And it helps put them at the same position and helps give them the same opportunities as others. Substantive equality is really focused on outcomes. And it would be simple to have equal outcomes if we all started in the same place in life, but the reality is that we don't. I'm going to show a video now. It's called The Race for Life. I will let you know it is an emotional video. It can be sensitive and trigger certain emotions, but even though it is emotional, it's a really helpful and visual way of understanding what substantive equality is, why it's important in a world where privilege and inequalities do exist.
Hey, line up! Line up! Everybody line up! We're about to race! Everybody line up! Shoulder to shoulder, take off your backpacks. Basketball, line up, we're about to race. Hey, we are racing for a $100 bill. The winner of this race will take this, a $100 bill. Before I say go, I'm going to make a couple statements. If those statements apply to you, I want you to take 2 steps forward. If those statements don't apply to you, I want you to stay right where you're at. Take 2 steps forward if both of your parents are still married. Take 2 steps forward if you grew up with a father figure in the home. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a private education. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a free tutor growing up. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to worry about your cell phone being shut off. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to help mom or dad with the bills. Take 2 steps forward if it wasn't because of your athletic ability, you don't have to pay for college. Take 2 steps forward if you never wondered where your next meal was going to come from. I want you guys up here in the front just to turn around and look. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. Has nothing to do with decisions you've made. Everything I have said has nothing to do with what you've done. We all know these people up here have a better opportunity to win this $100. Does that mean these people back here can't race? No. We would be foolish to not realize we've been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we've been given a head start. But the reality is we have. Now, there's no excuse. They still got to run their race. You still got to run your race. But whoever wins this $100, I think it'd be extremely foolish of you not to utilize that and learn more about somebody else's story. Because the reality is, if this was a fair race and everybody was back on that line, I guarantee you some of these black dudes would smoke all of you. And it's only because you have this big of a head start that you're possibly going to win this race called life. That is a picture of life, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing you've done has put you in the lead that you're in right now. When I say go, on your mark, get set, go! If you didn't learn anything from this activity, you're a fool.
Wow, that was tough to watch. Personally, I found it difficult to see all the kids looking back at the starting line and seeing their looks and realizations, and then the children who were closer to the starting line, that realization of what they all understood doing that activity. Very tough, very emotional. And as unfortunate as some of those situations are, it's the reality for some children. And children who face challenges and obstacles that are outside of their control, they need individualized support and added support. And that's why Jordan's Principle exists. It's to give access to services and individualized support. So again, substantive equality, it provides equal opportunity and equal chances to arrive at the same outcomes as others by delivering services that are adapted to fit the specific needs and the real needs of children. As you can see in the second box, Cindy Blackstock, Jordan River Anderson's family understood the importance of making sure substantive equality exists in Jordan's Principle. And that's why they fought so hard for it to include services that are above the normative standard. So when you're applying for services and products that are above the basic level of healthcare and services, you're going to want to explain how this is ensuring substantive equality, how providing the child with this extra support or individualized support, how that's helping create that substantive equality and equal outcomes. So to recap the support letter presentation, you want to remember that every child is different, every situation is different. So your support letter is the chance to speak and paint that picture of the child and their request by explaining the context, explaining the need, by listing the items and service, having a written recommendation for what you're asking for. Being specific really helps, and remembering who your audience is, Indigenous Services Canada. What do you think they need to know in order to understand the child and the request that you're making to Jordan's Principle? As a reminder, please send all your applications, questions, ideas, concerns to this email. If you have specific questions about substantive equality, if your application is above normative standard, if you have included enough information in your support letter, feel free to contact us through this email and we'll be sure to help you out. For more information, you can also find us online at the Disability Program Specialized Service website or the Cree Health Board website. Miigwech, thanks for listening in. Hope to hear from you soon.